Today I'm starting what I hope will be like a semi-ongoing regular series, something that I'm calling Sample Sundays. See, often brands or friends and family members, or sometimes strangers on the internet will send me samples of rum, which is absolutely appreciated, but sometimes they have a tendency of just sitting there and collecting dust. So I figured every couple Sundays I'll crack one open and try it for the first time on camera. And I'll give you my initial thoughts and experiences with the rum, and you'll quickly see how bad of a taster I actually am. The reality is I really need to sit down with the rum for a very long time with no distractions and kind of just let it wash over me. And that's the only real way I can pick out and articulate the flavors and aromas that I'm getting. I need a real sensory deprivation chamber kind of situation with no distractions whatsoever. On the spot tasting notes, yeah, I'm not so good at that. It's really tough for me to focus. So that gets us to Sample Sundays, where we don't got that kind of time. I'm gonna just kind of give you my initial thoughts. We're gonna keep it super casual. And you know it's casual because I'm wearing a hat. So I'm actually starting off with 2 samples from Dead Reckoning. Now, Dead Reckoning is an Australian independent bottler. They source rums from around the world and offer them either as blends or single cask releases. They've been in Australia for about 3 years now. They've been in Europe for about a year, and now they're finally here in the US, which is great. I'm all for having more independent rum bottlers. The more of those we have, the more amazing rums we'll get to try from all over the world. Now, in the case of these 2 samples that Dead Reckoning sent me, we're gonna go to Australia and Fiji. And we'll start off with the Fiji, which is titled South Pacific 10-Year Muscat Cask Rum. So this is a molasses-based rum made at the South Pacific Distillery, which is Fiji's only rum distillery. Now this is a blend of 80% column still rum and 20% pot still rum. Those rums are blended and then aged 10 years, all tropically, in Muscat barrels. Now that seems pretty straightforward enough, but apparently this rum was distilled in 1994. Yeah, that's right. So it's distilled in 94, aged 10 years in those Muscat wine barrels, and then pulled out of those barrels and then put into stainless steel holding tanks for 18 years. Why? Well, apparently South Pacific didn't really know what to do with the rum. Eventually it made its way into the hands of Dead Reckoning, where it was bottled at 47% ABV, and it's finally arriving here in the States. Let's give it a try. Now, the one thing I know that I'm really bad at when it comes to assessing a spirit is articulating the color, the visual of it. Unless it's clear, I don't really have the right words to describe the color of this. It's amber, copper, I don't know. Anyways, let's give it a little swirl here. Now, truth be told, I don't know if I've ever had Muscat wine, so I'm not sure what that's supposed to smell like or taste like. So if I'm picking that up here, I wouldn't even know it. The first impression is fruity, very fruity. And this isn't a tropical, Jamaican fruity funk or anything like that. It's more of a sweeter fruit. There's a little bit of a floral note there kind of underlying the fruit. You know what I'm getting in terms of fruitiness? I'm kind of getting pear. Yeah. A touch of spiced pear. Not overly strong, but a little hints of it. It kind of the initial impression I got was, might be more of a regional thing, but there's a distillery here in the Bay Area called St. George. They used to make Hangar One vodka. They make a great line of gins, but they also have a spiced pear liqueur, which is super tasty. And this is the aroma here is kind of reminding me of that. All right, well, let's give it a sip. I almost got this impression of lychee, which is kind of a note that I've picked up on one other rum, which is the Trinidad Flag series from Lemon and Valier. It's not as intense of a lychee, but I don't know, it just that's where my mind went. A touch of a little bit of cough syrup actually too. As I'm letting it linger is when I start picking up a little bit more of that slightly tussin note, right? Is that what we call it, right? Robitussin? A little of that cough syrup. Yeah, actually, I think this is an enjoyable rum. This is actually something I would reach towards if I had it on my shelf. a little dry, it's floral up front, a little hint of like tussin or cough syrup there. That initial kind of hit of lychee I've kind of lost, but the finish dries out. Yeah, this is, ooh, yeah. Getting a touch of, in the midst of that cough syrup, I'm also getting a little bit of menthol as well, which has kind of lately become something that really kind of intrigues me with rums, and I find myself gravitating towards those. That was the South Pacific 10-year Muscat Cask rum from South Pacific Distilleries in Fiji. Next up, we have the Australia 9-year Bourbon Cask release. Now, this rum was produced by Binley Distillery on the east coast of Australia. Now, most of the rums that I've had from Australia have pretty much been independent bottlings of Binley, like Holmes Key releases, Transcontinental Rum Line, and now Dead Reckoning. Now, this is a pot and column still blend. It was aged 4 years tropically, meaning in Australia, before being sent over to Europe, where it was aged another 5 years. So that's a total of 9 years in ex-bourbon casks. Eventually, though, it made its way back to Australia, where it was bottled up at 55% ABV. Let's give it a try. Again, my wax skills when it comes to describing the color of rums, I'd say this is paler. This is definitely paler than the Fijian rum there. It's definitely more brown in comparison. This is a little more yellow. So here I'm actually getting pear, but not like a spiced pear there. This is more of a sweeter kind of vanilla and pear combo. Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of. I must be on a pear kick or something like that, I don't know. Yeah, like a pear, but like a slightly underripe pear. You know, those pears are a little hard, not as juicy. A little backed by some vanilla bean. Like vanilla that actually has some depth and complexity to it, not just like a one note vanilla note. Yeah, I think the Fiji has a little bit more of the kind of apparent and in your face kind of aroma than this one. This one you have to work at it a little bit. Underripe pear, or even a little bit of apple actually. Yeah, an apple. What kind of apple? I don't know. I can't even tell my apples apart. Apparently there's like tons and tons of different kind of apples. I thought there was Granny Smith and Red Lady? Galas? Right? Those are honeysuckle? No, honey crisp. But apparently there's obviously tons and tons more. So I couldn't really tell you which kind this reminds me of, but definitely kind of a bit of an apple or pear. And a little bit of that vanilla. Slice of apple pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. I guess that's kind of what it's evoking. All right, let's give it a sip. That's interesting. So it starts off fairly kind of sedate, getting a lot more kind of traditional kind of oak notes. But then I got this like on the palate, this riff of like blue cheese. And I still have this kind of little aftertaste of like a touch of a funky blue cheese. Let's see if it's still there on the second sip. Yeah, I still get it, and I kind of really dig it. I'm not turned off by that. I know for some folks that might seem unappealing. That's kind of what I'm just picking up. This little bit of like slightly funky blue cheese. How fun is that? It definitely kind of starts off with some notes of cinnamon and caramel. Dry, kind of woodsy note. But halfway through is when I start getting those little notes of blue cheese in there. That's actually pretty interesting. Now, you may look at both of the labels and kind of be like, well, the Muscat one seems a lot more interesting. Muscat wine barrels, cool. And the Australia is just bourbon cask, and like every rum is obviously an ex-bourbon cask, so on and so forth. So I didn't really actually have any kind of high expectations for it, but the Australia kind of was really impressive. It's doing something that I didn't think it was going to do, which is always something that I enjoy in rums, especially trying them for the first time. Now, I'm not super incredibly familiar with rums from Fiji and Australia. I had a couple of them here and there, but I can't really speak to whether or not these are indicative of what most of the rum that comes out of those two distilleries is like, but I want to find out because especially that blue cheese. and that spiced pear are interesting enough flavors that now I'm curious and I want to explore even more, which I think is a good sign, right? I think mission accomplished. So my understanding is that both of these rums are now available in the US, and another 6 releases from Dead Reckoning should be out around October. And I believe it includes a couple of rums from Barbados, another Australian, another Fijian, and there's gonna be like a multi-country blend as well. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I look forward to trying those. Who knows, maybe down the line I'll do like a proper sit down with these rums in my kind of sensory deprivation kind of like situation, take some a little more kind of comprehensive notes, and then do more of a refined video. We'll see. But yeah, that's that for Sample Sunday. I hope that was mildly interesting. Let me know in the comments if it was. And there you go. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.